meeting is held to gather public opinion. An exception to this rule is combined reports, which consolidate the public meeting and comprehensive reports. These applications are deemed by staff as straightforward and routine. Please note that staff use discretion in determining if an application can be a combined public meeting comprehensive report to expedite the approval process. Public meeting reports are provided to inform the public of all relevant information. Information gathered is then referred back to planning staff for the preparation of a comprehensive report and recommendation to planning committee. This means that after the meeting tonight, staff will be considering the comments made by the public in their further review of the applications. When this review is completed, a report will be prepared, making a recommendation for action to this committee. The recommendation is typically to approve with conditions or to deny. This committee then makes a recommendation on the applications to the next planning committee agenda under section 7. Council has the final say in the applications from the county's perspective. Following council decision, notice will be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the council to the local planning appeal tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipal clerk before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. Bylaws listed on this agenda provide the force of law to previous decisions of council. As a matter of housekeeping, and in the event of fire, please use the applicable exits in the region, they being to your left and to your right. And if everyone could either turn off or mute their phones. So we'll move to item number 2. I'm going to go through the content of the agenda here. Item 1.1. Due to COVID, the meeting is being held in a physically distant manner. The public is able to follow and participate in the meeting electronically. Members of the public who wish to provide comments under Section 8 of Agenda Item Comments from the Audience can do so by contacting clerks at pecounty.on.ca by noon the week before the meeting. Please note that this evening's planning committee meeting is starting at 6 o'clock. This notice is as per procedural bylaw section 4.62, which states regular planning committee meetings shall commence at 7 p.m. except as may be otherwise authorized by the mayor. The regular open meeting portion of the agenda, tonight's agenda, will begin at 7 p.m. So we'll now move to item 2, a motion to confirm the agenda. If we could have a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Harper, seconded by Councillor Nyman.
Mr. Mayor, this is a Harper Nyman motion that the agenda for the Planning Committee meeting of August 26, 2020, with the order of council to move into closed session prior to beginning the regular open Planning Committee portion of the agenda be confirmed.
Thank you. Question, Councillor Nyman?
Yes. I just want to confirm.
About the agenda?
Yes. So the 1.2, I've got on here, it's 1 p.m. It is 7, right? That was a typo, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. We'll call a vote. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Does anybody have anything to declare? Seeing none, we'll move into a closed session. If you could have a mover and a seconder, that Councillor Margetson, seconded by Councillor Bailey.
Margetson Bailey motion that council now move into closed session to consider a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organizations pursuant to section 239(2)(I) of the Municipal Act.
Thank you. All those in favor? And that carries. So we'll move into closed session. Madam Clerk, let me know when you're done. You ready? Okay, I'll call the meeting to order if I may. I'd like to welcome all the guests in the audience tonight to this physically distant meeting of the Planning Committee at the Regent Theatre in Picton. Members of the public who wish to attend a planning committee at the Regent must register in advance with the clerk's office to ensure that we're adhering to physical distancing guidelines. This evening's meeting, we have 15 people who have registered to speak. I apologize for the delay. We had some adjustments to the agenda. We have concluded the closed session. So we're going to pick up a little bit further along in the agenda, but I'm going to go through this preamble. Tonight's agenda lists all the items before committee for consideration. The recommended motions on tonight's agenda are shown in boldface. Copies of the agenda have been posted on our website. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed, and any participation in the meeting proceedings will become part of the public record. The recording from the meeting will be published on the county's website immediately and can be viewed by selecting the streaming tab on the county's homepage at thecounty.ca. Personal information collected as a result of this public hearing is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making a decision on this matter. All names, addresses, opinions, and comments may be collected and may form part of the minutes, which will be available to the public. The purpose of public meetings is to present planning applications in a public forum as required by the Planning Act. No decisions are made at public meetings concerning applications unless otherwise noted. The public meeting is held to gather public opinion. An exception to this rule is combined reports, which consolidate the public meeting and comprehensive reports. These applications are deemed by staff as straightforward and routine. Please note that staff use discretion in determining if an application can be a combined public meeting comprehensive report to expedite the approval process. Public meeting reports are provided to inform the public of all relevant information. Information gathered is then referred back to planning staff for the preparation of a comprehensive report and recommendation to planning committee. This means that after the meeting tonight, staff will be considering the comments made by the public in their further review of the applications. When this review is completed, a report will be prepared making a recommendation for action to this committee. The recommendation is typically to approve with conditions or to deny. This committee then makes a recommendation on the applications to the next planning committee agenda under section 7. Council has the final say on the applications from the county's perspective. Following council decision notice, notice will be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal a decision of the council to the local planning appeal tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipal clerk before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. Bylaws listed on the agenda provide the force of law to previous decisions of council. And as matters of housekeeping, in the event of fire, please use the applicable exits to the left and right. And if everyone could please turn off or mute their phones. I'd also, for the benefit of those in the audience, like to introduce Michael Michaud, our new manager of planning, who joined. Well, his first day was yesterday, so he's getting fully engaged in municipal planning matters. So we will proceed in the agenda to item 6. We will move into the planning committee. Item 6.1, if we could have a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Bailey, seconded by Councillor Harper.
This is a Bailey Harper motion that the I'm in the wrong place, that council now move into planning committee for the purposes of hearing statutory public meetings with respect to planning applications held in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act.
Thank you. All those in favor? And that carries, and I will now turn the chair over to Councillor Prinzen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to everyone for coming out tonight. These meetings are public meetings as required under the Planning Act, and will deal with the planning applications listed on the agenda. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the County of Prince Edward on the application, you must make a written request to the clerk of the County of Prince Edward or make an electronic comment on the application. There are a number of people wanting to speak, and due to pre-registration, we have a list of those people and the items they would like to speak on. So what I will try and do is call everyone in the order that I have, and at the end, I will make sure that everybody who wants to speak to such application has been heard. So please bear with us as we get through this. There are some in public and some on Zoom, but we will make sure if you are here to speak on an item, you will get your opportunity. So with all the housekeeping done, we will get rolling on the fun. 7.1, draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment. File numbers 13-T-17-502 and Z46-20, Wellington Bay Street, Main Street in Wellington. Madam Clerk, should I put this on the floor to start? Sure. Could I have somebody please put this on the floor? Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a Roberts McMahon motion. The report of the Development Services Department dated August 26, 2020 regarding draft plan of subdivision file number 13T-17-502 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z46-20 be received, and that after receiving public comments and the completion of peer review, a staff report be brought back for council's consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. So is the applicant or agent present, and do they have additional comments? It is my understanding that Spencer is our consultant for item 7.1. So Spencer, I'll turn it over to you for a brief overview of the project.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to the committee and staff and the public for giving us this opportunity to speak this evening. It's nice to be in person instead of Zoom. I'm zoomed out at this stage of life. On your agenda, on pages 12 to 94, you have the documentation on this application with attachments, and including a report from Mr. Matt Coffey. And as you just read, we are here in support to get public comments and committee comments on our plan of subdivision and to hear what people have to say. On the screen behind you is the plan of subdivision that we have brought forward. It's at the east end of the village of Wellington. The east boundary of the subdivision is the village boundary, and it's north of Main Street. There is 176 lots in this proposed subdivision, a block for a commercial, a block to support the residents of the subdivision. There is a walkway and other blocks to support pedestrian access in the southwest corner, and a couple of zones within the subdivision. If we could go to the next slide, please. So this is a color representation of the zones within the subdivision. So it's the previous plan, but the different colors. So I should stop and say at this hour, the plan of subdivision is already zoned R1-8. So it already has approval subject to the holding for single family dwellings of a certain lot frontage and area. What we're requesting as an amendment is in the southwest corner, the linear purple, blue is walkway and open space. The block below that or west of that is a stormwater pond. So these lands would work in conjunction with the stormwater facility. If we jump up to the north end, the rectangular in blue is this non-residential commercial community block to serve residents. And then in the big red L-shaped property, part of the lot, is a zone change from R1 to R2 to allow semi-detached dwellings. The current R1 zone only allows single family dwellings. So we want to introduce some semi-detached dwellings. And down the right side of Street A, which is the main north-south street, there's 17 lots that we want to have a bit of relief on the standard R1 zoning. If we could go to the next zone, or sorry, slide, sorry. So this is a table. It was handed out. I don't believe I saw it in the agenda. And basically what this table shows is the zones that we're being asked for in our application. And what the rows show are the 5 zones that we would like to get to, starting with the local commercial recreational, which is the 1 block. Then the R1X2, which is Street A east side, and that's singles with special provisions. Then we get to R2-X, which is Street D and E. Street D would have single family dwellings, 18 of them with certain setbacks and lot coverage. Street E would have 40 semi-detached dwellings added. And then the last one is R1-X, which is the majority of the subdivision, 101 lots, to have special front yards and backyards and lot coverage requirements. Is there one more slide?
Nope.
Okay, sorry. So basically, no official plan is requested or required. The zoning allows single family dwellings, but we wish to add semis and tweak the zone requirements and add the non-residential block. And the plan of subdivision is, as you see it, major road north-south, roads off to the west, road connections that can go to the subdivision to the west in the future, 2 of them, and road connections to go to the subdivision or the next phase to the north. And that's all I have to say. And my colleague, I think Martin, wants to say a few words.
Evening, Council. This is Martin Majerski, Wellington-based State's president. I want to thank Spencer for introducing our application, talking about the general zoning and the general outline of our proposal. I just have really a handful of comments, just to kind of discuss very, very briefly the background of our company and kind of what some of our bigger picture aims were with this development. So As background on Wellington Bay Estates, we do have some ties to one of the bigger companies and developers in the history of Prince Edward County, Sandbank Homes. We are currently an active developer and a builder in the county of properties in Wellington and Picton. The ownership of the company has built hundreds of homes in this community and has been building here for over 20 years, having indirectly employed hundreds of people in this community. Now, as to this actual application, I just kind of want to discuss some big picture stuff. We've been working with county staff since about 2017 to basically to design something that fits in well with the community. We've been working, going back and forth with county staff, refining the proposal. We just hit some of the big points and some of the things we were concerned with when we were designing this, and I know seem to be important to staff. This whole community is designed with public roads, wide right-of-ways. We're going to have sidewalks on every road, double sidewalks on all the collector roads. The point of that is we wanted this community to blend in well with the surrounding community, to connect well to every development that's there right now, to future developments. It was something that was very important not to have the community closed off. And I think we've done a good job of making sure it connects well to the adjoining community. After an initial filing in 2017, there was a major redesign of the whole proposal. And one of the main things we came back with after that redesign was a linear park or a linear parquet running from north to south across the project. That'll be on slide 10 of 18. So if I can see that slide. It's further down. Yes, that one. So if you see, we've got it marked in green over there. That is that's on a wide right-of-way, the main street running through our subdivision. The purpose of that has been to, again, this is after long discussions of staff, to connect main streets to the Millennium Trail. We have, if you can take a look at the very next slide. Sir, do you mind if I see just the next slide? There's, we have further lands up north that connect, if you see the top of that, those future development, that's the Millennium Trail up there. The idea is to run that parquet, that whole linear park, which has a multi-use path running all the way through the current development and the future development to connect the rest of the town to the Millennium Trail through our community. A couple other things that we've done in the meantime just to make sure integrate Wellington community and add to Wellington. There's on the southwest end of that development, there is a pond. That pond was donated to the county a long time ago by a prior iteration of this company. That pond was supposed to serve the entire community as a stormwater management pond strictly. We've gone back with county staff who have asked for a more aesthetic asset to add to the town of Wellington, for the residents of Wellington. So what we've done is, you can tell there's some extra blocks situated around it that aren't lots. We've created some extra space that we're going to be giving to the county to open up that area to provide access to an aesthetic asset for the community, for our residents and other residents within the town. A couple other little minor things. If you see that street on the right-hand side, if you went back for a second to slide 2 of 18, which is the slide 2 of 18 will be the zoning map. There's a special zone you'll see in orange on the upper right-hand side. That's the northeast side. Those homes fronting Street A, that main street where we have that parquet running from north to south. Those are the only homes fronting that street, and there's special provisions on there, making sure that the garages in those properties don't overwhelm the homes. They're pushed back further. Again, we're working very hard to create a nice path, a nice multi-use path, and a nice asset for the community. And the zoning is one of the things that's actually controlling for that. And I guess the last thing I wanted to mention is things that were kind of worked out to make sure we find the proposal, not just for the benefit of our property, but the community as a whole, or the town as a whole. We purchased a property. If you see on the bottom left-hand side of that page, there's a little route of a little right-of-way running to the West Lake. We purchased the property on the water right there at the advice of staff to allow for a stormwater management outlet that serves not just their property, but the town and as a whole, really. Not as a whole, but neighboring properties. Again, that was something done for the benefit of the community after a long consultation with staff, just something we're trying to do to make sure we show that what we are trying to do for the town. And there's one last little topic I wanted to touch on today. I'm trying to anticipate a question that I presume is going to come later today. A question I believe is going to come about attainable housing. So just to make it clear, the homes in this community will be attainable. And if there's any doubt in our company's dedication to providing attainable housing in the county, I'm sure some of the council will remember because they approved it. We're currently building 10 properties, 10 lots in Picton, some of the most economical plots to go up in that town in a while. We're also going to be building 16 more lots like that in the town of Picton, just to show, again, not just in this community, but Prince Edward County as a whole, they are committed to contributing to attainable housing in the city. So that was really all for my comments. Just wanted to give a little bit more context and background on how the project came together, how the subdivision was designed, what we're trying to do. And I'll be happy to help Spencer answer some questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that overview on this project. Staff, do you have any more additional comments at this time?
Through the chair, no additional comments.
Thank you, Matt. Knowing there are comments from the audience, I will go through my list now. Nancy, and sorry if I pronounce names wrong, I'll do my best. Nancy Dion, would you like to come to a microphone, please, and give your comments to the planning committee? Okay, so no comment. So thank you very much. Nope, thank you. I just don't want anybody to get forgotten. Darby, do you have any comments, or are you in the same boat? Thank you. Conrad, you're next. Do you have any comments, or are you here to support and answer questions if any come up later? Thank you. David Walker. Dave Walker, Trevor Lloyd. Perfect. Ron and Teresa Waslenko. Come to the microphone and you can just state those comments. And so just state your name for the record and
Ron Waslenko and Teresa Waslenko. We made an email submission. Is that gone into record?
Madam Clerk's nodding yes, so yes it is. Thank you.
That's what I understood it was going to be.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you.
No additional comments, and thank you.
No.
William Cobden. I see his name, but nobody.
Oh, he's on Zoom.
He's on Zoom?
I see him.
William's on Zoom.
Hi, William.
Here we have action.
Hi, William. Can you hear us? Can you hear us, William?
This is William.
Okay. Do you have some comments on 7.1 that you would like to give at this time?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So my name's William Cobbin, and my wife and I own a house here in Wellington, past 20 years. And I've really followed the development of this particular subdivision plan. I was at the open house last September, and I must say a bunch of us left that presentation with a lot of unanswered questions and deep concerns about the direction of that idea. It was the plan of a vaguely defined aging in place community with private roads, sidewalks, no trees, seeming little participation with Wellington community was troubling to say the least. So it was a great relief learn that our planning department, yourselves, and in particular our hometown councillor, seems to have turned this into a much better, more demographically inclusive plan, which hopefully can include young working families our community so desperately needs. You've made great progress, and here comes the but there are two critical issues I see that need more work. Density and green space. There's too much of one and not enough green space for the other. Developers are asking for density to be increased from the standard 14.5 units to 17.8 units. That's a 22% increase. That's a big increase, especially when the developers also want a large center block of units to have their street setbacks reduced by about 20%, street frontage reduced to 13 meters. The reduction of the lot size combined with the high density requests makes for a potentially tight, perhaps even claustrophobic neighborhood, I think. And this high density could be mitigated with green space, but there's none, say for a small strip running up one side of a major street. There might be something green and small around the stormwater management pond. So when you look for the parkland in the plan, what do you see? A one-line description, cash in lieu. So no doubt there's been some serious horse trading going on, but of course this is meaningless for new residents out for a walk, especially during a summer like the one we've just been having. An overly dense development needs green space for balance, but how to do it? One suggestion could be a small block, number 179, penciled in as a community center. Why would they build a community center? The best one in the county is only a stone's throw away. Lehigh Arena, fabulous resource, chronically underutilized. Why don't they use that? The same goes for Takapa tennis courts. We have newly refurbished courts just a block away. Something to think about, a possible chance for green space there. You can see my time's almost up, so I just want to say too much density with too little green space could have serious implications for this subdivision in the coming years and decades that our Wellington community will be living with. So I say, let's stick to the house rules defined by our provincial policy statement. New developments must provide for healthy, safe, affordable, and environmentally responsible communities. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, William, for those comments. Does anybody on council have any questions for William before? No, thank you, William.
Thank you.
Next, we will go to Dee Hazel. I believe Dee is on Zoom tonight.
Hi, Dee. Can you hear us? Hi, Dee. Can you hear us? Hi, Dee. Are you able to hear us? Dee, are you there? Councillor Margetson has your remarks.
Councillor Margetson.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. These comments are from Dee Hazel, who lives in Consicon area. I'm here again to share my concerns with the runaway development on our little island. I do know I sound like a broken record. That is okay. The loss of farmland and green spaces is of concern to me, and it should be of concern to everyone. Once our land is built on, it is gone forever. I'm not going to talk about lack of infrastructure, traffic, or pollution. These are all issues, but I am sure others will speak to. I'm concerned with the loss of land and the use of land for housing. We can't keep building houses as we have been. Urban sprawl is a huge concern in many cities and towns. It is now a concern in our villages here. Prince Edward County is an amazing and unique place, and I don't understand why we can't come up with housing ideas that are as unique as our landscape. Look at the plans before you tonight, and look at the subdivisions and houses being built on our island and in the jurisdictions around us. There is nothing creative and sustainable about any of it that I can see. I would suggest to everyone on council and in the planning department to look at how they house people in other areas using far fewer resources. These resources are both the materials used to build the buildings and the land on which the housing is built. I am sorry I don't have all the answers to the problems I am identifying. I challenge you around the horseshoe to do some creative thinking and Googling. I have sent out a few links to you. There are answers out there to help us house people without destroying more green spaces. We just have to find them. We have to do this together and soon, or it will be too late. That is all for now. D. Hazel.
Thank you, Councillor Margetson. Thank you, Dee, for sending in your comments. So I will move on to Kimberly Boyle. Kimberly, can you hear us?
Okay, now, can you hear me?
Kimberly, is that you?
Yeah, I can now. Yes. Hi,
Well-
it's Kimberly Boyle. Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome.
I have a lot of concerns with the development, but I'll focus on a couple. The issue with the arborist report. If you read that report, you would think that the area would is simply full of dying ash trees and insignificant bush. And in fact, the arborist says he, quote, found no trees on the property of high significance, importance, or value. I strongly disagree with that. There are some absolutely beautiful old maple trees, probably 100 years old. There's no mention of that in the report. And in fact, the arborist goes on to say, quote, with regards to trees, quote, it's best to start over. The idea of taking down those trees simply to put up the development and not work with nature, not work with the green space is absolutely appalling to me. These are beautiful old trees. Along that line, the idea of climate change is incredibly significant for the world, but for our community. And most places now are asking that you have some kind of green plan in place if there's a development that's going to take place. And we're looking at a number of developments in Wellington. So the idea of having some green ideas, to me, just makes sense. It's things like permeable driveways, green roofs, solar panels, whatever it is, because we know weather is simply getting worse with flooding and severe weather. So I hope there's some play with green ideas for this development that is likely, well, it's going to have a huge impact. The other thing I'm wondering, and this is a question because I don't understand, what's the benefit to the community of a private development as opposed to public development, private-public combination? What are the benefits that we would get other than putting up some buildings on some green space? And my other question is the cost to the community. And what I'm referring to about that is the water tower that everyone keeps talking about. Is this something that the developments will be taking on, or is this cost that will be passed on to residents in the community? And one last comment I want to make is I do question the type of housing that is being built, because I think we really do need to, in my opinion, we need to look at density rather than sprawl, and housing that would accommodate more people within the community rather than having people that are retiring and coming to live in the community. I'm also someone who's retired and come here, but I think we do need to focus on, I'm not retired yet, but I do think we need to focus on a variety of housing, not simply single dwellings.
Thank you. Thank you, Kimberly, for that, for your comments. There was a few questions in there. I am sure staff is writing them down and will answer them throughout the report that they present later on. I'm looking for a head nod, and I got it, so all good. So thank you, Kimberly, for your comments. Is there anybody who has comments from committee, from council to Kimberly? Holler if you guys do. Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you.
John Dolmage, our next speaker on 7.1.
I'm going to kick you out. Just kicked you out, put the new person on.
Hi, John, are you here?
My Dell is actually Barada Massioli. I want to speak to 7.3.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Trish Warrison, did you have comments from the audience on 7.1? No? Okay, thank you. Is there any other comments from the audience on 7.1 that I have accidentally passed over? Seeing none. Council, do you have any questions or comments for staff on 7.1? Councillor Harper?
The question is the development a private community that's marketing essentially to seniors, or is it more of an open community that anyone who's interested in living there could live there? And I guess related to that is the community center. Is it for the residents who only live in that immediate vicinity, or could residents elsewhere in Wellington be using that community? Thank you.
So, Matt?
Yep, thank you. Thank you. So through the chair, my understanding, this is a public community with public roads. There has been some discussion about some common elements, but I would leave it to the developers and their consulting team to perhaps dig into that a little bit more, and also how the property is being marketed. So I turn it over to either Martin or Spencer to answer that question.
I'm happy to answer that. So as I mentioned earlier in my speech, the roads, sir, is that audible? The roads themselves will be all public roads, and we've gone through great lengths to make sure it's accessible and connects to the rest of the community. The ask for whether there's any private facilities. Right now, that's currently still in flux. We're trying to figure out what the market dictates. We're also trying to figure out how much services we can allocate to support whatever type of community it is that we try to build. We've requested zoning that would allow us to do a private community in the middle of that development, or the northern end of the current development, which will be in the middle of all of our total lands. We're giving ourselves that option, but at this point in time, we're still trying to explore it depending on market factors, services. Yeah, so that's really kind of a moving target. But at the same time, I do want to be frank. We're going to let the market dictate. And if the market dictates that the primary demand is from a certain mature demographic, if that demographics allows us to sell out that community faster than other demographics, then we will target that demographic. But like I said, things are in flux. We're still trying to make up our mind about that.
Thank you, Martin. Councillor Nyman?
The question I have is, I'm on page 93 of the agenda, and it's showing the picture of the trees, the cross section of the road. I just want to ask staff, all trees for the subdivision are going to be back on the owner's side of the sidewalk, I guess. And the reason I ask that is because I don't see in there the underground infrastructure, and we'd rather not have trees over top of the underground infrastructure. So is the trees behind the sidewalk on private property?
Staff?
Yep, so through the chair, the, the road cross sections that you're looking at are still very conceptual. And at the time that the subdivision is draft approved, they were required to do detailed engineering. And if there's any shifts that are required, and Steve Harvey's here, he can speak to this in more detail, but it would, any revisions would occur at that time.
Quick follow-up?
Go ahead.
So I guess, is there a way we can ensure that the trees are back on private property instead of, so we don't run into a problem down the road where the tree is creating havoc with the water, sewer, or any other stuff, I guess?
Yeah.
Or the service lines?
Steve, I see you.
Yeah, so Steve Harvey here. Typically, the trees are right on the property line. And so if we were to put the trees on private property, that is definitely an option. And what I'm hearing is council wants that. So there is an opportunity for staff to make that happen.
Thank you.
Councillor Roberts?
Is about affordable, attainable housing in the county. Back in September, when we heard this presentation, we were told that affordable housing was very much part of the agenda. And I was encouraged to hear the reference to affordable or attainable housing this evening as well. But I just want to be sure about the specifics. In September, we were told that if this Wellington project were to go forward, that 25 low-cost semis or townhouses would be built in Picton. They would start somewhere in the 250, 259 range. And also there would be a rollout of rental apartments in Wellington starting in the 1,000 or 1,100 a month range. Is that still what we're talking about when you refer to contribution to affordable housing? If so, I commend it.
So
go ahead, Martin.
Thank you. So to clarify that, the Picton proposal, the projects that we're talking about, we've gone forward. So we have a site plan approval and we've started construction on 10 of those homes. The homes didn't end up in the 250 range because just prices in the market didn't stick at that time and things took a little bit longer to get approved. So by the time we came back in the market, you factored in coronavirus, supplies got a little bit more expensive, but all those houses are still starting currently under $300,000. I believe they started at 279. Those Picton homes. There's 10 built and it won't be actually be 25, a total of 26 in Picton when it's all said and done, assuming we can get our next site plan approved. As for the Wellington project, the rental apartment, it was something we were working on with a partner at that time. Again, with the coronavirus being what the coronavirus is, that's kind of in a holding pattern right now. I believe a lot of builders who are doing rentals are kind of in a holding pattern, but there is still right now probably a less defined plan for doing some density there. But I don't want to make any promises because what was on the table at that point in time involved a partner and the market just simply took a turn. But we were still looking at doing density on that lot. Just the exact plan is a little bit less refined at this point. Is that fair? Or would you? Council, would you like
Councilor
any
Roberts,
further clarification?
Are you content with his answer?
I'm not content, but I understand the circumstances and we'll have another go at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Councilor Harper.
Mr. Chair, just for staff, the 179 units, one road for all those units onto Main Street, just any thoughts on traffic implications? Can Main Street handle that volume? Thank you.
Steve
Harvey. So there was a traffic report completed and submitted. I looked at it. There is going to be, or what's being proposed, sorry, is a turning lane on Main Street. So they did find that there would have to be work on Main Street. They didn't find that there would need to be any signalization or anything like that, but they did find that turning lane would be required.
Thank you for that. Any other further questions? Oh, Councillor Nyman, one more.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to follow up on Councillor Harper's. So the work on Main Street would be covered by the developer, is that correct?
Steve?
Yes, the work on Main Street for that turning lane would be borne by the developer.
Thank you.
Councillor St. Jean?
There we go. Always test your mic. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to go back to the affordability questions that Councillor Roberts has been asking. With regards to, and quite honestly, what happens in Picton is not the same as what happens in Wellington, so I'm going to stick to just the Wellington plan of subdivision. As far as affordability goes there, what price points are we looking at? Starting price points? Or did you answer that and I missed it because the audio here is horrible?
I didn't get into price points. The reason for that is we're not at draft plan approval stage yet, and we're also waiting for some services to be sorted out. So it's very tricky for me at this point in time to try to predict where prices will be at 2 years or so from now. But we're not aiming at a premium market or anything like that. It's like I said, the houses will be attainable, not subsidized housing, but attainable housing.
If I could follow up, Mr.
Go ahead.
Chairman. I guess what I'm looking for is a range. Are you looking at a starting point of 300, 400, 500, 600? It's a valid question, and it really is given the affordability crisis that we're in here in this community.
Given that I'm 2 years away, it's tough to me to paint myself into a corner, but I can tell you that 600 sounds very high.
But you're not willing to commit to anything in the 3 to 4 range as a starting point?
I consider it likely at this point in time, but again, if we're looking that far ahead, I wouldn't want to put it in stone. But I see those as reasonable ranges. But again, I'm very careful given the time constraints. And is that fair?
Oh, that's fair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could get one more question in that's not to do
One
with
more question.
affordability.
Go. If you have somebody else, maybe.
Thank you. With regards to, and this is to our staff, our engineering staff, with regards to traffic flows, given that you've got Street A that ultimately is going to continue on and around through to another development, it has the appearance of a boulevard. And I'm sure Councillor McNaughton will agree with me that we have, and others, we already have serious issues in some of our communities with traffic calming problems or the lack thereof. Is there going to be consideration in the roadwork design to hopefully alleviate future problems? I see a long straightaway, and we are going to get those complaints down the road as we have been getting. So I would be very much encouraged and very much encourage our planning staff to incorporate into these designs for our these new roads some form of calming as is required under the secondary plan in Wellington.
Go ahead.
Yes, Steve Harvey, County Development Engineer. Yeah, we already told that to the developers, and they're aware that we want some sort of traffic calming. So we'll deal with that in the detailed design, but it is something that's on the table right now that we want done. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more questions from council on this item? We're just going to double check that we got everybody from the public to make sure all our public comments are received for staff. So I'll just give Madam Clerk a minute. We're good. So 7.1 is on the table. All in favor of the motion that's on the floor? And that carries. Seven point two, official plan amendment, draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment, file numbers OPA 1-2020, 13-T-20-501, and Z 25-20. Fields of Wellington, Inc., Conscon Street in Wellington. The applicant or the agent, I believe Ryan Goter is our consultant on this. And sorry if I mispronounce your name. Ryan, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you very much. Can everyone hear me okay? Is
We can
the
hear you.
audio coming through clearly?
We can hear you well, Ryan. If you would like to give us a brief overview of your project, that would be
Well,
great.
first, thank you very much. What I would indulge you is I do have a presentation. I believe it was part of the package in the agenda. And with your indulgence, I'm going to try to stick to a 3 to perhaps 5 minute run through of a presentation with a few remarks. And if I can share my screen, I'll endeavor to try to ensure that can be viewed by all. And if you can bear with me a moment, I would appreciate that. And for those that do have the screen available in front of them, they can perhaps view that. Just bear with me a moment here. All right, so can everybody see my screen there with the presentation?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay.
It's there.
So again, we do have Mr. Alan Hirschfield, an owner, I believe, present physically there. But just to provide some brief context, the lands in question here are situated sort of in the north planning area, north of the Millennium Trail, having frontage on Conscon Street. And we're dealing with approximately just over 4 hectares of land next to the proposed Catlin development as well. And at present, the lands are within the urban center, the neighborhood development area. The staff report provides a good snapshot of the current status. The proposal before before you is really a neighborhood concept plan together with official plan amendment, zoning bylaw, and subdivision applications, each of which have been filed. And what we're contemplating here is an integrated community that would be subject to several phases, beginning sort of with keen access to Conscon and some of the other road connections. But what you can see here is obviously the overall concept that we've studied carefully. And we're considering an official plan amendment that would enshrine some of the use permissions, a zoning bylaw amendment dealing with what I'd consider to be zoning that would be permissive, allowing for some controls, but also some flexibility to allow different types of units, large and small, with different compositions. And what I wanted to highlight briefly is, as was alluded to in the staff report, what we're contemplating is really quite a variety of unit types. You can see with the different colors represented here. There's residential forms that are linked housing types. There's townhomes, there's mid-rise and more apartment configuration units as well, which are sort of the pink and darker pink colors. But what I wanted to do is, as part of the evolution of the thinking behind this plan, the developer, myself, and our team, we met with the community. We had 2 very well-attended community engagement meetings in which we received feedback. What you see depicted here is some of the innovative ideas that we've come up with, both in terms of housing style, but form. You can see would be part of the mid-rise proposal. And again, what we're really trying to achieve is something quite unique that's both complementary to the rich history of Wellington, but also progressive in coming up with some new ideas. So we do believe that the type of housing that we're considering here has a very keen interest in terms of design, the common areas, and some innovative and progressive design solutions that would have secondary suites, opportunities for at-home business, that sort of thing. And so we've taken into account the feedback from the community. And this just gives you a snapshot expression, and for those of the public as well, the sense of how we've evolved the plan. I'm well aware that we're in the midst of responding to comments, and with a few brief remarks, I'd just like to say there has been very much consultation both with the community and with staff in various departments. We're quite keen to continue those discussions, obtain any feedback from members tonight, but also through the coming weeks. We are preparing a response to comments we've received. There's a few pieces to deal with, and obviously take into account feedback tonight. But I did want to comment briefly that there was an extensive list of materials submitted in support of the applications. And our intention is to continue the collaboration we've had with staff and with stakeholders concerning some of the infrastructure challenges to finance those works. But also, we intend to be collaborative in that, use the tools that are available. This will be a phased development, multiple years of responding to the market, and also being sensitive to things like sustainable design features that might be incorporated, things that were raised by one of the prior deputants. And I would simply acknowledge that one of the key things we're trying to do with this proposal is have growth occur in a managed way, and allow for an incremental phasing of development to occur, such that infrastructure can be delivered, that there can be incremental growth, but that it's sustainable, that there's opportunity for connections, using the Millennium Trail as a key recreational spine, and really trying to leverage that into a successful development that is attractive to the community and, again, complementary to it. So with those remarks, I am aware of the intent to move forward with an interim control bylaw, as I understand it, and that these lands would not be subject to that. And we're certainly keen to hear feedback. I appreciate the indulgence of a few additional minutes beyond the targeted time. I do have the ability to respond to specific questions of members of council and or the public, and would certainly appreciate the opportunity to engage further beyond tonight in addressing all comments that have been received. So very much appreciate the opportunity to speak to you, albeit on a virtual platform. And again, I'll leave the presentation up to the extent that Alan Hirschfield, in any remarks from the developer standpoint, cares to utilize it, or if there's questions of members or the public. So thank you very much for the opportunity to address you this evening. And again, I'll be here listening intently and able to respond. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan, for that presentation. At this time, I will ask staff if they have any additional comments.
Through the chair, no additional comments at this time.
Thank you very much. So on to my comments list. Ryan led right into Alan Hirschfield is in the audience, so we will allow him a few minutes. So just state your name and give your comments, and thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Alan Hirschfield here. I don't have a specific agenda to speak to you about, other than to say that since the inception of this project, we have received only support and encouragement and relevant input from the public, from residents, from council, and from staff. So we feel a great deal of responsibility to produce something worthwhile in Wellington. We're very cognizant of the fact that Wellington is a village. Us and other developers are faced with, together with the county, quite a significant challenge in providing needed infrastructure for the existing village as well as for growth. And we're in the midst of developing those. I must say that it has been very efficiently done on the part of staff, and our engineers have worked hand in hand with the engineers on staff and those retained by the county. So we're confident that we'll be able to have a solution to that big hill that we have to climb as far as infrastructure is concerned. I think there are two issues that have come up tonight that I'd like to allude to. The one is just generally the size and pace of growth. We're looking at long term, anywhere from 10 to 20 years. But we do need a kind of a roadmap to justify the very large costs that we face in being able to bring new housing to the community. And then I'd like to mention something in relation to affordability. And this is not specific to our project. It's just a kind of a comment to make from the development side that I think might be interesting. I think the land bought in the 5 to 10 years in the county has not been that expensive. I think we've been able to buy it at fairly decent cost, and that all the other costs that go into what it costs to build a house or a townhouse are comprised of consulting costs, municipal fees, development charges, minimal interest costs, because when you buy land that doesn't cost what it does in Toronto, you don't have to go and borrow money to pay for that land. Most of the developers have paid for that land out of their own resources. So we don't have large amounts of banking interest. So with that and the construction cost, that's really what the cost of the house is. And I can tell you that the lending institutions require the developer to show generally a minimum of about 15% profit in order to fund the construction costs. So in a way, we're not really at odds with council or with the residents. I wanted to explain how we add up those costs and why they are what they are. If we can trim costs, it's a function of the municipal process as well as the private sector. It's not simply us sitting on cheap things that we can sell for a lot of money. The margins are quite slim, and I know, speaking for ourselves, I don't want to speak for other developers, but I think that that's something that maybe is not always understood clearly by the general public. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan, for your comments. Is Janice O'Brien here? Nope. Okay.
Hi.
Oh, Janice is on Zoom.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Welcome, Janice.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the chance to speak. And I have to apologize. I've been out of the county and the country for the better part of the last year for my work. And so I'm just getting caught up now as a resident here. I'm late coming into the process. I do have multiple concerns as a resident. I'm at the very top of West Street, so I'm close to where the project is. And I'm right next to the Millennium Trail. So I'll try to quickly go through my main concerns. I am concerned about the water. The report claims that the existing infrastructure can support this development. But I question that in light of the fact that there are water shortages, we're seeing more increased droughts, and that there are multiple developments being planned. So I'm questioning whether that, these effects are being looked at cumulatively, because we're only getting, a study on one development here. So, I think it's really critical that we ensure that the impacts and the assessment are looked at cumulatively, and that the costs are borne by the developers now to develop the necessary infrastructure up front, and not borne by us as residents down the road. We already have the highest water rates in the province. Secondly, regarding the stormwater, this is definitely a little bit of NIMBY, because I am right next to where the stormwater catchments are planned. There was significant flooding in 2017, and many residents were affected by that. I can't say strongly enough that the runoff studies need to take a really precautionary approach and make sure that, bigger is better in this case. Really encourage, the development of natural and native landscapes. And there may be answers in some of the reports. I haven't had a chance to read everything, but, ensure that there's not going to be standing water sitting around here with, the increasing vector-borne illnesses that are going to be transmitted with mosquitoes with climate change. So, just being in my back door there, I don't really want to have more bugs around. And just in terms of other comments around green space and things like that, it would be wonderful to think if there, could be a bigger is better stormwater catchment area, something maybe that's contiguous, allowing, green space to continue between West Street and between Wharf Street. I'm not quite sure what is planned for that middle block. So that would be another thing. And also, the larger the area, the more distance there is going to be, while this construction is going on for the next 10 years. It's a bit more distance from the site itself. On the note of actual construction, I just have a question about the access during the construction phase. I know that there's going to be a main access off of Consacon Street past the graveyard, and just wondering if that is something that, access will be maintained. Access through Wharf and West Streets will really not be allowed for the construction until the end of the development project. And then those streets would be opened up for through traffic. The next point is really just regarding community benefits, obviously, and you've spoken to this, the developer is going to benefit in terms of being the profitable body out of this. I think this year we've seen, a next level in terms of traffic, in terms of overcrowded spaces, the inability of us as residents to even access our community beach here in town. So, we're going to be dealing with noise and dirt and dust for the next 10 years. What other potential community benefits are the developers willing to bring to the table? I think a community pool in Wellington would be great. I think paving portions of the Millennium Trail, 5 miles or 5 kilometers either side of Wellington would be awesome. So, maybe there's some additional things that we should be considering that we're going to get out of this development project as well. Lastly, is in the context of the climate emergency, which, the county has passed a climate emergency act or bylaw. And with this in mind, I'm really wondering, I'm really wondering if council should be considering only allowing climate-friendly developments to happen in the county, and make sure that, we're putting our money where our mouth is here. Are these developments going to be using solar, geothermal, passive and heating, cooling? Are they going to be using sustainable building materials? Are these sustainable developers? Are they specialized in sustainable development itself? And more importantly, if we have a climate emergency act, these projects need to be climate neutral. So I haven't seen any study of the carbon emissions that are going to be associated with this development over the next 10 years, transportation, concrete usage, excavating lands, soil disturbances, the carbon losses associated with that. So I think that, a study needs to be done on the carbon emissions. We need to ensure that sustainable home development is done, green roofs, all these things need to be considered. This is the way of the future. And once that emission is done, this project needs to be carbon neutral. So we need to see offsets of trees planted in the community, trees planted within the county around the surrounding area to offset what climate emissions are incurred. So that's my summary of my thoughts. And thank you for the time to bring them forward in public.
Thank you, Janice, for your comments. I saw staff, and I believe Ryan was writing down your questions as diligently as you were presenting them. So I'm sure answers will come forward in the reports.
Great, I'll submit these in through as well. Sorry, I did come in late.
Sorry, pardon?
I will submit my written comments in as well to one of the counselors. I'm sorry for coming in late to the process.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Thank you.
D. Hazel is registered for 7.2 as well. We'll try her again. So we will accept her emailed comments to Councillor Margetson as probably 7.1 and 7.2. D, if it's any different and you're watching, could you please let us know? But thank you. And William Cobbin, he's registered for 7.2 as well. Did he have more comments or he's out?
Not in the meeting anymore.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so I think I got all the comments from the audience and from the Zoom on 7.2. So now I will turn it up to the stage, and I'll start with Councillor Harper.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. This is for Alan. At the start of your remarks, you referenced the fact that Wellington is a village and you're sensitive to that. Could you just maybe speak a little bit more about exactly how your concept dovetails with the village? It feels like an extension, maybe as opposed to a traditional subdivision. I think that's what the residents of Wellington are worried about, is that this feels a little bit more of an extension rather than a subdivision that's just plopped down north of the Millennium Trail. Any elaboration on the village sensitivity would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we started with wanting to tie into the village. It's a worthwhile place, and we didn't want to dump a UFO next to the village which didn't have any connection to it. So that's why we looked at West Street and Wharf Street continuing on in an organic way that you would normally add to a village. It turned out in discussions and meetings that the residents on Wharf Street really didn't want a vehicular connection because of the road that they have there, and we've agreed to that. But we are providing a bike multi-use trail connection through to the village. Our object is for people to move into the extended village and still walk to the center of the village, not to have to get into a car and drive there. So that's really fundamental how we started this project. In terms of the housing forms, we think that there's, Ryan alluded to innovative ideas. The innovative ideas are essentially just re-looking at traditional housing forms where you had rear alleys, but widened to the point that you can get modern snow clearing trucks in using current engineering standards. But really, it's a revival of traditional village and small town forms, which have served Ontario well for 150 years. And we see that there's no reason why we can't reintroduce those things. And then in reintroducing them from a planning structural point of view, they also have an aesthetic content to them as well, the way that porches work, the way that roofs work. And you just don't have that kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but sort of disappointing look that you get in modern subdivisions. We don't want to do that. We want to link to the best parts of the county. And there are many examples of those, both big and small. So I don't know if that answers the question. I wanted to just add one thing in relation to the previous speaker on Zoom, that we'd be happy to undertake exclusion of all construction traffic on West Street, because I think that'd be the wrong thing to do. In over the 10 years that we shouldn't have trucks going in and out on that street. And then as far as sustainability is concerned, the new Ontario Building Code coming in is a very strong code. And a lot of the Ontario Building Code is the most restrictive in North America. And it deals with sustainability to quite a degree. And of course, on top of that, we are set on doing those things, and some of them they're not very sophisticated, but you know most of the houses you see have metal doors on the front door, and then they rust and fall apart, and same goes for the roofs. We don't use 3-year windows, we use 20-year windows. We use fiberglass front doors so that they have a 20-year minimum warranty to them, and some of it is just not building with stuff that falls apart. That has a sustainability all on its own.
Thank you. Councillor Hirsch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is for Mr. Hirschfield, so you can get back up with the mic, sir. I noticed from your plan, and I kind of like the village layout as you've described it, but Really interestingly, those two red blocks are proposed to be 60-unit mid-rise buildings, I'm assuming. We would normally call those apartments.
Again,
Roughly when might we expect those to appear in terms
So
of the
I think
phasing?
the limitation on that is not market demand. I think it's infrastructure servicing. We have a plan that we've been working on with the county to produce infrastructure on a phased basis and to share it reasonably between the 4 developments in the village. And we have made a point that we need to differentiate between the demand of a single family house, of a seniors oriented residence, and they have different needs. So that has been accepted by the CAO, and I know that them and engineering are working on that. But we would very much like to be able to produce a mid-rise rental building that would be aimed at seniors. And some of it's quite simple, not too big, decent size, with a covered garage that not outside parking, so you can come in from the store and not get blown off your feet in the winter, so that you can have a covered walkway from where you park your car into your house and into your unit, and have elevators, and with COVID now, having balconies that are big enough to have a barbecue on, and not have to, and actually big enough to put chairs and a table out and have your friends over. So I think there's those sort of things that are coming up about, and we'd love to be able to do something like that. I know from our market research, we've been working with Chestnut Park, who are well-known real estate agents here in the county, have said that there's strong demand for that, but we just don't know whether there's servicing available for that.
Councillor Nyman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So basically, it's the same comment about the trees. This is for staff. So again, if we could, and I'm going to go put it out there for future developments, I guess, if we could ensure that the trees stay back on private property so they don't interfere with the underground infrastructure and add extra cost to if repairs need to be made. So if we can make a comment on that.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so I was thinking about the tree comment, and we can have them pushed onto private property, but what I want council to think and consider about is the trees are considered an asset. So the county wouldn't have that asset anymore, and it would be owned by the private homeowner, and they could actually remove that tree whenever they want. So some places actually rather have the trees in the boulevards, and they're not actually interfering with sewers. But if council chooses that they want the trees on private property, we could definitely entertain that, and we can make that happen.
Councillor Nyman, one follow-up?
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Chair. And yeah, I fully understand that. But then it comes to the, I guess the problem is if it's in the boulevard and you got water and sewer storm, even the laterals and the sewer or the service going into the house, the roots from the trees can create an awful havoc on the underground infrastructure. And if there's a repair that needs to be done, you have to cut the tree down. That's an extra cost that you don't really need. So you're kind of, in my mind, you have to kind of figure out where you want your cost to be. And, the trees create a lot of havoc on the underground infrastructure. So that's all. Just want to get that out there.
Comments taken. Councillor St. Jean?
That was faster. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two questions. The first one for Mr. Hirschfield. Is he still at the mic?
He's stepping up to the mic right now.
Okay. I can't see around the corner. Sorry. With regards to the density that you're going for on this development, under the secondary plan, the minimum density is 14.5, and it appears you're looking at 15 units per hectare. One of our biggest concerns, obviously, is number of customers on our water and wastewater services. And one of the things that I certainly push for is higher densities, unit densities on properties. Have you considered finding a way to increase the density on this development?
So we're zoning by block and not by frontage, so that gives us flexibility in lot type. We'd be happy to look at increasing density as we go through time. Again, I think it's mainly a function of infrastructure that's available. If we have availability, we know that first-time buyers have, which I think is something that is important to the county. We need to provide options for those young people coming in, and if we can do that with increased density, then we'd be happy to do that. Again, I think in Ontario towns and villages, there's a long history of having very different densities, but not at very large scales, happening comfortably next to each other. And I think we could repeat that. It's just a question of what our available capacity is more than anything else.
Thank you. Did you have a second question, Councillor St. Jean?
Yeah, yes, I did, Mr. Chairman. With regards to the, and I'm not, I guess maybe Alan can answer this too. With regards to the secondary units, as everybody knows, we have a serious whole home short-term accommodation issue here. Councillor McNaughton and I both supported a motion, and council did too, to explore a moratorium on whole home SDAs. One of my concerns is SDAs popping up in any new developments, which is to me self-defeating. We're taking away, building new homes and then turning around and turning them into hotels. I don't agree with that. So I guess I would ask you, Mr. Hirschfield, if you would be supportive of a ban on SDAs in the new developments such as yours.
Absolutely. That was not our intention. Our intention is to provide loose fit housing, which has loose fit, so that a young couple can move into a normal, regular detached house, a 3-bedroom house, and be able to afford it because they can rent an apartment above the garage, and to design it in such a way that there's adequate parking for a tenant. They may decide to have extended family living there, or to work from home, as we know that's become an important and something that's probably here to stay. And never been our intention to provide this as short-term vacation homes.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Are there any further questions from council? Okay, I skipped a step, so I will now ask somebody to put this on the floor. Councillor Harper, seconded by Councillor Margetson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just missed my spot here. Give me 1 second. 7.2. This is a Harper Margetson motion that the report of Development Services Department dated August 26, 2020 regarding draft plan of subdivision file number 13T-17-502 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z46-20 be received, and that after receiving public comments and the completion of peer review, the staff report be brought back for council's consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Harper. And before I call the vote, I just want to double check that there's no more comments that I accidentally forgot. Seeing none, I will now call the vote. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation.
Thank you.
7.3. The report of the Development Services Department dated August 26, 2020 regarding Wellington Urban Center interim control bylaw. Would somebody please put that on the floor? Councillor McNaughton, second by Councillor McMahon.
Thank you. Oh, there I'm on two. Sorry, who was seconding?
McMahon.
Hello. This is the McNaughton-McMahon motion that council receive report DS-108-2020 for information, that the proposed Wellington Urban Center interim control bylaw be referred to council for approval, and that staff bring forward an information report which reviews the policies and schedules of the Wellington Urban Area Secondary Plan within 12 months of the passing of the proposed interim control bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor McNaughton. So I'll go through my steps as they're laid out in front of me. The applicant or the agent, which there's none of those. So staff, additional comments.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, no additional comments.
Thank you, Matt. I see there is one member of the public that is registered to speak on Zoom, Berardo, and I will let him tell us his last name.
Good evening. It's Gerardo Massioli. Yes, I am.
Welcome. Welcome, Berardo.
Good evening, members of Planning Committee and staff. Do you wish me to speak now?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, my name is Gerardo Massioli, and I'm speaking on behalf of 1087086 Ontario Inc. It's the owner of lands known as Lakeside Estates. The approval of this item means that while this bylaw is in force, the county has shut my project down and planning staff will not accept or process my subdivision application. We had a pre-consultation with the county in October 2018 to restart a lapsed plan of subdivision, and we're told to wait until the master servicing plan was completed. We have worked with the county through that process and advised and provided to the county our plan revisions to include low-rise rental apartments within our project to help meet the PPS and growth goals and our willingness to cooperate with the servicing plan. This bylaw is passed, an uneven playing field is created as only existing applications will continue to be processed. 2 of them are on the agenda tonight. And the developer prefers a decision that is fair and equitable. That's what I'm speaking to.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. Making sure I don't forget nobody. Council,
Is there any,
Matt, should
is there any questions of the,
council,
of?
or does council have any questions for Berardo? Do you have a comment, Councillor McNaughton?
No, because I think staff would more appropriately respond to his concern.
I think they're probably taking, do you want to speak to what he stated in his comments, Matt?
Yeah, so through the chair, it is true, as Bernardo has said, that they did have draft plan approval several years ago. That plan did lapse, and they have been working with us as part of the infrastructure strategy that was talked about earlier. At this time, there is no application from Lakeside Estates, and we've had some preliminary discussions, but at this time, I don't know for sure when that application will be coming. I think in the recommendation in my report, there's an opportunity between now and the next council meeting to maybe consider a suggestion from Lakeside that maybe they'd be excluded from this bylaw. I'm not sure how we do that. It would require some tweaking in the bylaw wording. But between now and the next council meeting, we can consider some amendments.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Does council, thank you, Berardo, for your comments.
Thank you.
Does council have any questions on 7.3? I'll go to Councillor Margetson first.
Yes, it's just I think it's a fairly simple question. In the report, you're proposing a freeze for 12 months. In the bylaw, it says that the OPAs and zoning bylaw amendments and subdivisions will not be considered for a period of 6 months. Was that intentional, Matt?
Through the chair, the intention is that it would be for 12 months. We had some discussions earlier about having a 6-month window, but we believe a 12-month window would give us more appropriate time to look at all the policies in the secondary plan. So it is 12 months.
Councillor Nyman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify something, I guess. So there's lands north of the Wellington Arena. I believe John Dolmage owns them. They're not included in this interim bylaw, right?
Through the chair, I'm not sure specifically of the lands you're referring to.
Okay, because we just had this discussion here and we held the guy back for a couple of years, so, and I can't tell you what, parcel of land it is. It's the one between the arena and the, Millennium Trail. So I don't know if you can put one of the diagrams up there.
So maybe to answer your question, it would apply to any official plan amendment, zoning amendment, or subdivision that requires the extension of servicing. So if this property requires those things, then yes, it would apply to that property.
Well, okay, I'd like to get more information on that piece of property then, because I don't think putting an interim bylaw hold on him again is right, because like I say, we've done it, we've held him up for 2 years, and he had a plan ready to go, and then he couldn't do it and probably lost it. And I don't think it's right to do that to him again. So I don't know how we get that information, but if we can't get that information here, then I'm not going to support it.
So maybe just to add to that, the intent of the review is to look at our servicing and our development strategies in the town of Wellington. So if this property does require infrastructure upgrades, similar to the other developments that we've been talking about, then it is worthwhile to take a look at how this property would be impacted by that and how we plan to service that property in the future. So that's the intent of the bylaw.
I still won't support it unless I get information on that.
Are there any further comments? Councilor Harper?
Thanks, Mr. Yeah, Matt, just, I know that the intent is to sort of slow things down. Do you have a sense of, if we didn't do this, how much development is out there that potentially could happen? I mean, we're already looking at quite a significant jump in the size of Wellington. It certainly wouldn't feel like a village to me much when we add all these houses we've been talking about tonight. What are you really talking about in terms of units on top of, or acreage on top of what we've already said we're listening to and discussing with?
So through the chair, I think we're re-examining the schedules. It's really areas north of the Millennium Trail. If you look at the old town of Wellington secondary plan, a lot of that land was designated rural, and in 2015, it got brought into this neighborhood development concept area. And so I think we need to revisit those policies and kind of relook at our time frame for how long we think it will take for that development to be phased in, I guess. Perhaps when the secondary plan was drafted, we didn't anticipate that there would be such a high level of demand for housing at this particular moment, only 5 years in. But that's the situation that we find ourselves. And so it's prudent to go back, take a look at those policies, and make changes if we need to, given the demand that we're facing today.
Thank you, Matt. Any further comments? Mayor Ferguson?
Yeah, I think this is a very prudent move. We've been going at breakneck pace here, and I think it's 12 months to take a pause and review where we're at is totally appropriate. And I thank you very much for bringing this forward. I'm fully supportive.
Any further comments? Seeing none, I will now call the vote. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. So within 15 days of council's decision, a notice of decision will be mailed out prescribing and advising of the decision, the conditions, if any, and the date on which the 20-day appeal period to the local planning appeal tribunal expires. If no appeals are received, council's decision is final. Any person who wishes to receive notice of decision of council must submit a written request to the municipal clerk. So, on that, I will move to item number 8. I'm looking for a motion to resume sitting as council. Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Harper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a Roberts, is that Councillor Harper?
Harper.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mike. The Planning Committee now rise and resume sitting as council.
All in favor? And that carries. Mayor Ferguson, back to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Prinzen. So we will now move to decision items for consideration. We'll move to item 9.1. If I could have Councillor Maynard, if you could move this forward, please. Put it on the floor. We'll need a seconder.
I know that
Councillor Roberts, if you could read that, please.
Yes, thank you, Worship. This is a Maynard Roberts motion that the report of the Development Services dated August 26, 2020 regarding consent file number B4420 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z3620 be received. That consent file number B44-20 Gregory and Lori Brown for lands described as part lot 4 and 5 Haslet Plan Point A, Part 3, 47R 3983, Ward 4, Millersburg be approved, subject to the following conditions being number 1 to 12.
Okay. Thank you. I'll ask staff if there are any additional comments to this application.
Through the mayor, no, we do not.
No. Okay. Is the applicant or the applicant's agent present, and are they in agreement with the conditions of approval?
Can we look at our time frame?
Yes, we're in agreement.
Could you just state
We
your name?
are in agreement with the conditions.
Could you have your name, please?
Lori Brown.
Lori Brown. Okay. Okay. Thank you. And is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak to this? No. Any questions of members of council? We'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that carries. We'll move to item 9.2. If we could have a mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Hirsch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a Roberts Hirsch motion that the report of Development Services dated August 21, 2020 regarding consent file number B46-20 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z39-20 be received, and that consent file number B46-20 Johannes Midrik for lands described as part lot 56 concession 1 west of Greenpoint 147R 6884 Ward 6 of Firesburg be approved, subject to the following conditions, and they are 1 through 12. That zoning application file number Z39-20 Johannes Midrik for lands described as part lot 56 concession 1 west of Greenpoint 147R 6884 Ward 6 of Firesburg be approved.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask staff if there are any additional comments.
Through the mayor, no, we do not.
Is the applicant or the applicant's agent present?
Through the mayor, no, they are not, but they have confirmed via email that they are in agreement with the conditions.
Okay, thank you very much. And there's no one in the audience. And is there anyone on Zoom that wants to speak to this application? Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. Mayor, but if I could just ask Lori on Zoom right now, if you could please pause your YouTube. We're getting a live feedback. Thank you.
You're directing that to whom?
Lori.
Oh, okay.
I did it. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry.
Can't. Can you? Sorry.
She's in 9.4.
Okay.
She just wanted her to pause.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Any questions of members of council? Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I missed it on the last one we just voted on, but I'll get it on this one anyways. Could you explain condition 12? with the easement, because on the drawings, I don't see any easement, and it's saying that there's existing easements.
Through the chair, that appears to be a typo. There's not an existing easement on the property. So that would be asked that it be removed.
So number 12 would be removed then?
Yes, or not removed, but the wording easement. We will ask that there be a friendly amendment for the word easement be removed, existing easements.
So what's the phraseology here?
So what's number 12 then?
So number 12 allows us to have a registrable description a new legal description for the new lots. So when they go to register the new lots, they have has a new legal description. That is a carryover. The wording existing easement is a carryover likely from a different application and using just the existing condition 12. There is no existing easements on the property, but the condition 12 should still stand because we need there to be a registrable legal description for the new lot to be created and registered at the land registry office.
Okay, so can I follow up if I could?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the one we just voted on had that same condition about the easement, and there was no easement on that property either. So how do we go about changing that?
Through the chair, it is, so when you're re-registering the lawyers, the applicant solicitor, if there's no easement, it says existing, so it should not be an issue because there's not an existing easement. We're not asking for an easement, and it references an existing one. So the new description should not have an easement, and it should not be any issue when they go to register the application.
Madam Clerk, I think has.
For either of these applications?
Correct.
Madam Clerk.
Through your worship, if planning committee and council, if council is amenable, it can just be an administrative change in the minutes because the intent is the same. It's just removing that language, but we will make sure that for the next 9.2 that is removed, if that's permissible with everybody. Thank you.
So just a quick follow-up there. Number 12 is the same. It is. If you look at the next 9.3, it's in there. 9.4, it references easements, and there's no easements on them. So it'd have to be changed on them all, I guess.
Okay, if we could, in the future, if it doesn't apply, it shouldn't be in these, what we're dealing with.
Through the mayor, we have noted, and we will ensure moving forward that unless it's necessary, it will not be in the condition number 12.
Okay. All right, any other questions of members of council? No, seeing none, all those in favor? That carries, thank you. So we'll now move to item 9.3. Cover mover and seconder for this, please. Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Nyman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a Roberts-Nyman motion that the report of development services dated August 26, 2020 regarding consent file numbers B48-20, B49-20, and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z40-20 be received. The consent files number B48-20 and B49-20 Johannes Midrick for lands described as part lot 55 concession 1 west of Greenpoint, Ward 6 of Firesburg be approved subject to the following conditions. And they are 1 through 12. The zoning application file number Z40-20 Johannes Midrick for lands described as part lot 64 concession 1 west of Greenpoint, Ward 6 of Firesburg be approved.
Thank you. I'll ask staff if they have any comments apart from clause 12.
Through the chair, no, we do not.
Okay. And is the applicant or the applicant's agent present?
Through the chair,
Same
through the
thing?
mayor, no, they are not, and they have agreed to the conditions.
Okay. Are there any questions of members of council? Seeing none, all those in favor? That carries. Now move to item 9.4. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Margetson, seconded by Councillor Prinzen.
Margetson Prinzen motion that the report of development services dated August 26, 2020 regarding consent file number B50-20 and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z41-20 be received. That consent file number B50-20 Lori McGugan for lands described as Part Lot 22, Concession 1, SSEL Part 2 and 4, 47R 3277, Ward 5, Athol, be approved subject to the following conditions: 1 through 6, and that rezoning file number B41-20, Lori McGugan for lands described as Part Lot 22, Concession 1, SSEL Part 2 and 4, 47R 3277, Ward 5, Athol, be approved.
Okay, thank you. Are there any additional comments from members of
Through the
staff?
mayor, yes, actually on this one we do, and it's back to that same condition. I would like to keep the existing easement in there because there is an existing right-of-way that services the property. So we want to ensure that the wording is correct on that for this one, that the existing easements stay on condition 6. Thank you.
Okay. I'll ask if the applicant or the applicant's agent are present. No.
I am the applicant. I'm Lori McGugan.
Okay. Welcome,
And I
Lori.
approve all the conditions.
So you're in agreement?
Yes, I am.
All right, thank you. And
you.
there's no one in the audience that wants to speak to the application. Any questions for members of council? Oh, you think you got one?
Yeah, I think I got
Okay.
one. I'm just looking at
Go
this.
ahead, Councilor Nyman.
I'm just looking at that mapping, and it's not marked on the right-of-way is not marked.
So through the mayor, the right-of-way is at the bottom of, it services 77 Moores Lane, and it goes through. So it winds through, and it's just at the, if you're looking at it head on, it'd be at the bottom left of the property, and it just goes right into the property. So it ends right at 77 Moores Lane. So it has a subject to, there isn't a right-of-way over the property, it ends right at the property. So 77 Moores Lane can cross over the rest of the properties that Moores Lane services.
So.
Okay, thank you. Follow up?
Yeah, I'm not following it because I don't see it on the drawing here, on the map. Is there any way?
So if you go to, and I apologize, I should have, it was on the initial report. It was an attachment 4. The proper survey sketch was there in which it referenced the instrument number. On this report, we only have the key map, which we have taken off the instrument number, which references the easement. But it would be sort of at the, if it's, for lack of a better word, at the end of the hockey sticks or at the blade, right? That's right where the easement goes into, the right-of-way would go into.
Right away from, like, are we going from the retained lands?
So no, it doesn't have anything to do with the retained lands or so it'd be, imagine the end portion, it just continues out. It's not over the retained lands. It is purely to fix. So I wish the attachment 4 was there because it shows a lot clearer, but basically the easement continues on throughout to the west and then goes up towards Salmon Point. And it involves multiple properties to the west, but there is an existing easement on the property, but this more or less just brings it in more flush with the property is supposed to service, which is the benefiting lands.
I just have a
Okay.
quick follow-up.
Follow-up? Yep, go ahead.
So I'm just trying to understand what the easement's for then. Is it like an easement or a road allowance? And where's the easement go? I guess who's it in favor of, I guess?
So it's in favor of the benefiting parcel. It's an existing easement. It's a right-of-way. It is a easement, so easement right-of-way that is registered on title existing. It is formerly Moore's Lane. So it goes up through the east or to the west of the property and then goes south towards Salmon Point. So it is an existing cottage lane easement / right-of-way that is existing and registered on title.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, any other questions of members of council? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming this evening. So we'll move to bylaws for consideration. Item 10.1, Councillor Prinzen, seconded by Councillor McMahon.
This is the Prince and McMahon motion that the following bylaws be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. It says 8.1.1, but I should be 10.1.1?
Yes.
10.1.10.1.1, 10.1.2, 10.1.3, 10.1.4.
Thank you. All those in favor? That carries. Item 11, our confirmatory bylaw. Mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor St. Jean, seconded by Councillor Harper.
Thank you, Your Worship. St. Jean Harper motion that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. The bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the County of Prince Edward at the meeting held on August 26, 2020.
Thank you. All those in favor? And the motion to adjourn. Councillor Bailey, seconded by Councillor Harper.
This is a Bailey Harper motion that this meeting now adjourn at 9:05 p.m.
Thank you. All those in favor? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, staff.